You talked about 377A. So let me just use this as one example. In Singapore, we don't tackle contentious issues by dealing with it in an open, free form, and say what you like and don't care what the consequences are kind of approach. We don't do that because it is sensitive. In many cases, there are emotive issues as well that deal with race, religion, and in this case, sexuality, sexual orientation, and others like gender, also very emotive. So we take the approach quite differently. If this was an issue in, I don't want to say the US only, but in the Western media, Western world, it would have been approached at quite differently. But in Singapore, we look at it in this way. It's been a topic that has been on the cards for a long time. I think you all know that, right? What's important for us fundamentally is what's good for society. We in government don't approach this in a dogmatic, influenced by ideology and religion fashion. We take it into account, but we are secular. And the government remains secular so that religion and multiculturalism can flourish in society. You know what I mean by that? Let me say it again. We remain secular so that we can make sure that we do not dominate the space in a pro-religion way. But we remain secular so that everyone, every religion, every viewpoint can have more space. And that's an important philosophy. And applying it to 377A, which has some religious overtones because the religious ideology and thinking influences whether you're pro or against the repeal and so on. So this has been an issue for a while. We talked about it, canvas views. We've always had some thinking about what to do about this in the back drawer. Always at the same time getting a good sense of society, understanding whether social values have shifted, have changed. What's more important, is it there really to criminalize behavior, which is private and consensual, or is it really as a marker, as a symbol? And if so, as a symbol of what? Those are all very important questions. And over time, I think we were really influenced by two key things. One, when it is a symbol and it remains a symbol on the books, then there is a strong negative effect, whether you are from the LGBT community or not. Because if there's somebody in our community who cannot feel that he or she is not discriminated against, it's going to be very difficult to say we are an inclusive society. So that's one operative thinking behind it. Another, of course, was the fact that I guess if you don't jump, you'll be pushed. In a sense that it becomes a free-for-all when the courts make that decision. And we don't have to look very far away in history to see that. I mean, you all know what Roe and Wade is in the US. Roe and Wade was decided how many years ago? 50 over years ago, right? It's then become the paradigm position on abortion in all the states. But just recently, that shifted, that changed. And when you leave it to the courts, that's going to be the outcome. You shift one way, you shift back the other way. Now, whether you're from the LGBT community or otherwise, I think we can all agree that when we want to change these things in society, we must do it collectively. There is a political process to it which includes dialogues like this. Courts don't engage in dialogues like this. They don't take into account the temperature of the room, the sense of society, social value, where we are on the marker and on the spectrum. So therefore, these are two driving factors behind it. We thought about it, went out to engage quite extensively. We talked to young groups, we talked to religious groups, the older ones, younger ones. We spoke to professionals, get a sensing. And in the end, as I said, we're motivated by those two factors. And it is a long process, not just this year, not just last year, but over a period of time. So when we handle these kinds of contentious issues and we do it this way, it becomes less confrontational, less adversarial. Sometimes we do these consultations closed door to get a sense first. Dip your toe into the water and then say, maybe time is not right, it's too cold to deal with an issue. We back off for a while and we don't talk about it because sometimes going out there publicly engenders opinion, brings people together in a non-productive way. So I think this has been the Singapore way of doing things, and I hope we can remain along this path in the way in which we handle contentious issues. In consultation, in discussion, constantly engaging. And then once the government has taken a position, what do? We go out there and we explain it clearly. You might not agree with it, and I accept that. You might think it's a step too short. Why just stop at repeal? Why not accept civil unions? Many people have told me that. Others have said it's a step too far. We are not ready, should not be repealed, it should still be there, keep to the status quo. There are different views, and they're not wrong. But we have chosen a certain view. We think that this is why we want to repeal it. But at the same time, these are the values that we want our policies to adhere to, and we go out there and we explain. Many of you I know are active in your own civic discourse, and that's encouraged. We should do that, because if you don't have these outlets, again, where will those views end up? They'll end up online, anonymous, fairly vitriolic, and sometimes abusive. Which leads me to my next point about cancel culture. It's not healthy at all to have this. I don't mind people disagreeing. I think we should disagree. Otherwise, we'll all be robots. We should not disagree to the extent that we go out there, we abuse, we troll, we cancel. Because that, I think, will cause people to recoil in their shell. And so what we like to foster in the real world, in the physical space, we must also build in the online space. A space where you feel comfortable expressing a view. And no one should be cancelled. No one should be doxed, trolled, and so on. Okay, so we take this very seriously, and you'll have heard some of my colleagues talking about rules that we want to put in place to ensure that we have this respectful conversation. That's, to me, very important to build this up.